I'm Yashasvi Raj. I'm here with Miller today. We're both students at IIM Ahmedabad, currently studying a course called NFS, Not for Sale, the Psychology of Promotions. It's being taught by our professor Akshaya Vijay Lakshmi, and it's a very interesting course. We study a lot of things related to marketing, one of which we're going to discuss today, which is the use of mascots in branding. So, brands primarily use mascots for personification and to create a relatability factor for consumers. More from Miller on what the meaning of mascots are.
So, like the single most important element would definitely be its design, how well it is able to capture the elements of a brand, what the brand wants to personify, its values, and in general, the uh, the image that the brand creates. So, with this um, comes the factor of process fluency. With process fluency, it is basically how easily, from a psychological perspective, it is how easily someone can register the brand mascot or the image, and how well they can align with it. Basically, the brand culture, if the mascot has been given a backstory, or if the mascot is in some way related to the brand or doing something with the product that is of the brand. Apart from that, I think the types of mascots also goes into structuring how a mascot should look. So first one being, I think some of the most popular ones being human mascots, that is like the Amul Girl and Ronald McDonald. So these are basically human caricatures with some specific features that identify with the brand. Then we have anthropomorphic mascots, where they are basically animals given human characteristics. And uh, another famous type would be the object like mascots. Basically, objects are personified with some human types of characteristics, such as the Android mascot or the M&M candies, which are personified as mascots. So, as a deeper dive into this, we went around our campus and asked people as well what their favorite mascots were or what their favorite campaigns were. So, these which came out like consistently were the Amul Girl and the monkey from Chocos. So, why do you think these might be so popular?
So our other group members, Mahidhar and Pranarup, they actually had a very interesting conversation with an industry expert yesterday. His name is Ambi Parmeshwaran. He's a brand strategist and he has been in the industry for many, many years. I think we can take it over to him.
I think if you give a small introduction of 1 to 2 minutes about yourself, it will be best for our viewers.
No, I think, I've spent enough time in marketing and advertising, close to 45 years, working across diverse categories of brands. And I've also written several books. But I don't think we should waste too much time talking about my achievements.
Sure.
And you can get on to the topic of your podcast.
Okay, sir. So we have our first topic. So, what factors do you think mascots are appealing for consumers? And one thing we observed is in West, if you see McDonald's, KFC, or Starbucks, which have specific mascots, they've been using for many years. But in Indian trends, there have been for Air India or Amul, there have been mascots, but in recent years, there are not much mascots coming. So, what do you think the reason of this change?
I think mascots are used by brands to make the brand more consumer friendly. That's a primary reason, right? So especially if you're a B2C brand and you want to communicate that you're a very friendly brand, one way brands used to do it in the good old days was to create a mascot which a consumer can empathize with, which is why McDonald's had this Ronald McDonald as a mascot for many, many years. They continue to have him across the world. The Jolly Green Giant, again, was a mascot used across the world. So there have been several brands which have used or I think Chevron has used Tony the Tiger. So multiple brands have used mascots to present a human face to their brand, right? So that normally consumers are often scared about the big company. Will they live up to the promise they are making? So in that sense, the mascot tends to soften the image, right? And in India also, we've had number of brands. I mean, if you go back 30, 40 years, you had, Asian Paints had Gattu, Amul had its Polka Dot Girl, Air India had the Maharaja, uh, Goodless Nerolac Paint had a tiger called the Goody, just to name a few.
Yes.
Right.
So one more thing. So one thing we observed is when we there is a survey that said key on TVs. So 60% of the ads are generally using mascots. Like the percent of ads that are using mascots. 10 years ago. On social media, it is very low as 20 or 30%. So do you think families or consumers which are on, watching things on TV differ on social media such that companies are utilizing mascots in TV while using celebrities in social media?
I don't think companies are using mascots in TV also. If you look at some of the big mascots we've had, like Air India or Air India Maharaja or Gattu of Asian Paints, they are not using Gattu anymore, right?
Yes.
Air India is also not using Maharaja anymore, right? The only mascot which seems to have lived for a long time is the Amul, the Amul polka dotted girl. So I don't think you can say that mascots will work on TV, but they will not work on social media. The simple thing is, mascot is used at one point of time to communicate a friendliness to the consumer. Today, the brands don't think that is needed because anyway, they are communicating in many, many ways with the consumer. Good old days, there was only either print advertising or outdoor or TV. Now the brands are communicating almost on a daily basis on social media and other platforms. So probably they feel that using a mascot is an unnecessary layering of the message. Right? Today, you have probably 4 seconds or 5 seconds for the consumer before the consumer, you know, swipes right or swipes left. In that time, are you going to be spending time showing a mascot, or are you going to spend time showing your logo? Right? So brands are saying, look, let's use the time, show the logo to the consumer instead of confusing the consumer by showing an elephant or a tiger or a lion or a buffalo, which will end up probably confusing the consumer even more.
Yes. So one thing, so if in India, if you see, there are like many states, many languages. So when a brand wants to make an ad or any celebrity they want to endorse, they need to take to regionally connect. They need to take different actors from different areas, different, and they need to translate every ad into different language. So don't you think mascots will have a neutral perspective, and they also don't age, so you don't need to change celebrities every few years, and they can easily be controlled, and they don't have any controversies surrounding them which will affect brands. So do you think mascots will have a better area of reaching out to people in India?
So let's look at it. If you are a brand and you create a mascot, obviously creating a mascot is not that expensive compared to creating a celebrity. But why do brands use celebrities? The reason why brands use celebrities is that the celebrity already has a fan following. So you are trying to get the transfer of that equity from the celebrity to the brand. Okay. If it's a mascot, the mascot has no fan following, zero fan following. So first you have to spend time building the mascot, making the mascot lovable, making the mascot recognizable. And after you've done that, it could take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Right? After that, when you put that polka dot girl, people remember, she's a Amul girl. Okay, but if you go back 30 years ago and you showed a polka dot girl, no one would say it is an Amul girl, right?
Yeah.
It will be just some cartoon character. So the reason for using mascot, reason for using celebrity, though it's very expensive, the purpose is very different. The purpose is to get a transfer of equity from the celebrity to your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So the mascot is used for a very different purpose.
Okay. Yes. Prendup, you have anything to ask?
Yes, so as we just saw that with time, the brand positioning and the messaging also changes a bit. And now in the time of social media where the advertising has become more targeted in a sense, why do you think that Amul Girl actually stayed throughout with and it still connects with people from our generation, people from previous generation, and even from our generation, from our grandparents? How did Amul actually kept the Amul Girl alive,
So
and why did?
Amul was an interesting experience, right? Amul doesn't use the Amul girl in all their advertising. Okay, they use Amul girl only for their butter advertising.
Mm.
And they've managed to keep that fun image with the Amul girl and butter, right? And they've continued it. And it's a question of investing in a property over 50 years. And that continues to resonate, right? Amul doesn't use the Amul girl for ice cream or for milk or for cheese or for their, powdered milk advertising. They don't use that. They use primarily Amul girl for butter. And I think they put the Amul girl picture on the milk pouch.
Yes.
So they are using it carefully. They're not just going and plastering everything with the Amul girl, which is why the Amul girl continues to be loved. If I start putting Amul girl everywhere, she'll become too common. When she becomes too common, my affection for Amul girl will come down.
Okay. So what about Chocos, that monkey with human characteristics, little? That one is more attractive during childhood. So even now they're using in ads and everywhere. So what do you think about that one? And also Duracell, if you see the rabbit ad, which they'll be running. So these are also have been popular. I think Chocos have been popular in India, but Duracell has come up and it sometimes visible and sometimes the ad stops. So what do you think about those ads?
So I think Chocos is more an Indian phenomenon. You should go back and Kellogg didn't have a big successful run in India. Their cornflakes didn't do too well. And then finally they managed to pivot the company towards Chocos, which is more like a chocolate snack. And I think they created this monkey character to, kind of befriend children to their product
Yes.
category. So it's a children product. So that is a children a mascot which appeals more to children. I don't think the monkey comes on their cornflakes or their muesli or any of their packs, right? It's only meant for children.
Only in
Um,
Chocos.
so that's a very specific example. What are the other one you asked?
Duracell, sir, the rabbit
See,
one.
Duracell energy, what they call the Energizer Bunny. It's a world famous image that it's not just a mascot, but it's also a demonstration of the longevity of the Duracell battery or the Energizer battery. It's called the Energizer Bunny in the US. The Energizer brand uses it, right? And it's not just a mascot, but it's also a vivid demonstration of the long-lasting power of the battery. So they've done multiple ads where they show this bunny walking across various things, and so it's like a demonstration.
So, in your experience, did you find any interesting case about mascots except for Amulga? Anything from international or Indian which you think will be useful for upcoming generations when they want to build a new mascot?
So in the recent past, I worked on a brand called Nippon
Yeah.
Paint. Okay, now this is
Mhm.
a very big brand in Asia, and they had come to India, and then I worked on their relaunch strategy. So what we did was, instead of creating one mascot, they have this character called the blobbies, which are really blobs of paint. So their entire campaign is based on the blobs of paint, right? And the whole campaign is based on that. And that's become very memorable and very catchy among consumers. So we use the blobs of paint, what we call blobbies. Blobbies are used in all their communication, whether it is TV, print, outdoor, posters. So if
Yes,
you
sir.
can Google Nippon paint in India, in fact, blobby is not a character. Blobby is not a mascot which they use in other parts of the world. They use it in some parts of the world, but not everywhere. But we in India, since India has so many celebrities, it all became too much of a mess. We said we will stay out of celebrities. Like what you said, we will create our own blobby. Blobby is our celebrity, and we will make blobby into someone who people will recognize. So
Yes.
this strategy was kind of crafted 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and I think it's done very well for the brand, both in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Kerala, where they're kind of becoming a dominant force.
Yeah, so Blobby is an interesting example. So we also, while working on this project, we noticed that most of the mascots that we were coming across, they were in some way or the other human-like in nature. Uh, but in what cases do you think that is it because people or brands want to connect with, want to have a face that is more of a human-like, or is there any other reason that most of the mascots we see are having anthropomorphic nature rather than an abstract idea or something like blobby?
I think even blobby has human characteristic, like it has a human face, human mouth, they wear a cap. So you bring whatever character you use, you try and give it some human characteristics, whether it's eyes and nose and mouth and speak, etc. That's what you want consumers to identify with it, right? I mean, why are you creating a mascot? You're creating a mascot to make your brand more friendly and more memorable to the consumer. So
Yes.
what will make the brand more memorable and more friendly to the consumer is human-like features. What you said, anthropomorphic features. So those are a must. Without that, it'll become too abstract for the consumer to relate.
So, in your view, what do you think the future of mascots in international and India? So, will you think this is to exist, or will you think companies will keep coming up with new ideas to integrate them to digital media?
I think mascots have their role, especially in certain product categories, especially children-oriented categories, fun categories. Mascots will continue. In other, for example, internationally, uh, in America, there is this insurance brand called Gecko, right? They use a lizard, right? They've continued to use it for so many years. Budweiser has used frogs, right? But they've not used frogs everywhere, right? They've used frogs in a particular campaign, right?
Yeah.
They've also, if you go to UK, Dulux Paint has been using the British sheepdog for a long, long time as a kind of a mascot. So certain brands so this will continue. I don't think mascots will completely disappear. It's depending on the country, depending on the kind of idea they have, brands will continue to use mascots.
Yes. So they will continue to exist. But what do you think the main characteristics which we need to consider when a brand is starting their own mascot, or if anyone wants to have a mascot for a campaigns? So recently we came in order, sorry, during our research we find that many campaigns have better reach if they have some character or mascot. So do you think what key characters we need to consider when we are starting a mascot?
See, one is, do you really need a mascot? Okay. And mascot means extra investment. Do you
Yeah.
have the money to spend that extra money in terms of presenting the mascot? Then what is the role the mascot is going to play? Right? And then how are you going to leverage the mascot outside your typical advertising? Will you be able to take the mascot to the retail outlets, do 3D images, etc., etc., etc. If you can think it through, and you
Yes.
can say that, look, I want to stay and build this mascot over the next 5 years, then you should go ahead. If you think,
Okay.
I'll use a mascot and the mascot is going to make my sale double, that's not going to happen.
Okay. It's a long-term investment and dedication is needed, not for a short, small time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, sure. So, any other insights you want to give us about this mascots and marketing before we end?
No, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a very good conversation, and I think we got some very, very good insights about mascots. And I was thinking that it's very interesting that some mascots, despite being very successful in their time, have now been discontinued. Some mascots have been successful, some do not work at all. What do you think would be the reasons for this?
Honestly, I feel that what Ambi said about Amol, I think that is one very brilliant stroke of marketing genius that they did. Because while the mascot is also very popular, as we have, as evident from our childhood, where we have seen multiple ads over the years, but despite it being so popular, they were very judicious in their use of the mascot. And because they ultimately know that just the brand name of Amul itself is enough to propel them to greater heights. So as Ambi had mentioned that most products of Amul don't have the Amul girl, it's just the logo. So the logo itself is equally recognizable. So when people see the Amul brand logo, they can easily get the idea, yes, that this is a brand that they have been with together for years. Now, if you take, for example, McDonald's. So Ronald McDonald, I think you must have seen that over the years, McDonald has started to reduce the use of McDonald.
Yeah,
I
correct.
mean, I do understand that it's part of a branding change as well, where they're moving away from the reds and yellows and more towards a dining outlet sort of minimalistic or sleek look. But at the same time, the iconic McDonald's yellow arches remain. So I think back as early as 1960s or 70s, I think when McDonald's had started to gain popularity, some of the major draws that it had were the yellow arches, and I think that is something even consistent today with its logo. So in this case, Ronald McDonald, I think, is just a product of the times that they don't want to take forward, because as you have seen, when newer McDonald outlets are being opened up across India and across the world, you don't see the same Ronald McDonald statue on a bench
On a bench, right?
outside those stores. Yeah. So that is one thing. Now, I guess they must have felt that with their new brand image, Ronald McDonald was not fitting. And I think many brands in general in these days, they have started to go away from these mascots, maybe because they're afraid of the commitment. Either it will work, either it won't work. But regardless, some brands might fear that the mascot itself might grow bigger than their brand itself.
Do
So,
you think there could be another reason as well? Like sometimes mascots could also work like against the brand's image. For example, if you remember a couple of years ago, Burger King started a campaign kind of bashing McDonald's, saying that why dine with a clown when you can dine with a king, something like that.
yeah.
So I think it's also like things like this that maybe prompt a brand to reconsider their entire branding, and if the mascot's being made fun of, exactly how long can you pull it off? And after a certain point of time, things are going to fade away. It's not going to have the same impact that it had several years ago.
Mm.
Not to mention that also the association that children have with the mascot. In the case of McDonald's, they have the Happy Kids meal, the kids meal, and also clowns are something that are generally associated with making children happy, going to children's birthday parties and all. That also has faded over the years.
Mm.
So I think that could also be like one of the reasons, especially in the case of McDonald's.
That is definitely an interesting take, because uh, that it directly relates to how brands want people to perceive their brand image. So in the case of when you said it as why dine with a burger, why dine with a clown when you can dine with a king. So the clown is something that McDonald's felt it was a staple, but over time, the clown also became a stand-in for the brand. So when someone is making fun of the mascot, I guess it also directly impacts the brand. Now some brands, they might take it as it is and take the hit and maybe double down on it. But maybe what you said might have also been the case.
Yeah.
And sometimes brands do want to keep a mascot. They just keep updating it over there. Such as Chocos, initially when it launched in India, it had the I don't remember the name, but it had a bear as a mascot. And I think around the early 2000s, they changed it to the monkey, which was much more popular because,
Yeah.
as Ambi had mentioned, Chocos really was the pivotal point for for the Kellogg's brand in India. And coming on to like the psychology aspect, I think as I had mentioned the process fluency stuff earlier. So some brands they don't know how to, or at least they feel like they don't know how the mascot aligns with the brand image actually. So such as Pepsi had introduced a mascot, I think it was called the Pepsi Man or something like that, maybe in the early 90s or 2000s, which was basically stand-in for Pepsi as a superhero. And it had a weird design which they might have felt would be cooler with the kids and they might like it. But a superhero and a Pepsi can, I think consumers did not really gel with
Understand
that.
the connection. Yeah.
Get that connection. Now, for example, with Chocos, you have a child-friendly monkey who's just eating Chocos and hungry for them all around. I guess that's a relatability factor. So sometimes it works, sometimes it just does not work. So and a mascot also has to be easy enough to understand. So the Pepsi Man, maybe again, it had some design characteristics that really did not gel well.
Yeah. I think overall this has been a very good project. We've got to learn so many new things, and thanks to Ambi especially for giving us his valuable time, and to the professor for giving us the chance to learn about this topic and to include it in our project.
Yeah.
I think that's it for today, unless Miller, you have anything else?
No, I think that's all from my side as well.
Okay, so thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you everyone.